Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Velero Community Meeting / Open Discussion. Today is June 9th, 2020, and per usual, we're going to start with some status updates and then go into the discussion topics. And let me share my screen so you all can see. All right. So we've got a few new faces here on the community meeting as well. So welcome, everyone. Super happy to have you all here. We're going to start off with status updates. And first off, we have Ashish.
So for me, it was a pretty light week in terms of community work. I worked on this PR to make it easy for folks to use restic. So currently you need to annotate your pod spec either in your deployment or wherever your pod spec is coming from to have volumes used by your pod backed up by restic. Now we are like inverting the or allowing folks to invert the selection of volumes for restic backup. So I have a PR out to do that. And of course, the PR excludes like host path volumes and the volumes mounting the service accounts, and also the volumes that users have set up to exclude from restic backup. So I have a PR out for that. So if you're interested, please do take a look and add some comments. Other than that, I've been looking at the volume snapshot progress proposal that Vishnu has, and there were some discussions about that last week. Other than that, I'm focusing on some internal build setup here at VMware. So that's pretty much my week.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashish. Any questions, comments for Ashish? All right, moving on to Steve.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm on community support this week. The last few days worked on a couple of things. The first one is an enhancement to the Azure plugin, which also required a change to Velero core, but this is to support AAD pod identity, which for those of you who aren't familiar, it's kind of like Cube to IAM in the AWS world, but this is for Azure. So we had a community member who submitted a PR for this probably 2 months ago, but it was a little bit out of date and needed some conflicts resolved. So I just got this updated and got it tested in an Azure environment, and everything looks good. So the PR that went into Velero core, which was for restic support, has already been merged, and the one for the plugin is just waiting for another review and merge. And beyond that, I also tackled an issue that we had around basically not logging an error if you have an additional item that's returned from a plugin during backup, but that item doesn't exist. So this came up. We saw it in a couple of different scenarios, but a common one would be that you have a pending pod in your cluster, and it's pending because the PVC that it's supposed to use doesn't actually exist in the cluster. So maybe it's a misconfiguration, or maybe it's just a timing issue. But previously, Velero would actually, a backup of that pod would end up in a partially failed state because Velero would try to go back up that PVC, and it wouldn't exist in the Kubernetes API, so it would log an error. So we've had a bunch of discussions on this item and agreed that it doesn't really make sense to log an error, but a warning would make sense. So I changed this code to just do that. So now in the scenario, a backup will still finish in the completed state, but it will have a warning logged, and that'll be visible to the user. So
yeah, this is a great change, by the way. It improves the reliability of Velero across the board, because mistakes like this where PVs don't exist happen all the time. So this is awesome. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of, and with input from the community for sure, agreed that it's not really Velero. It doesn't make sense for Velero to fail backups. If there's a misconfiguration in the cluster, we should just capture what's there and notify the user in a kind of a non-fatal way. So yeah, other than that, you know, miscellaneous reviews and such, but those are the main items for me.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments for Steve? All right, Nolan, are you on audio? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got that fixed. So this past week, I've been doing more review on the progress for backup restore operations. I won't go too deep in that because Vishnu is on the call and has that for a discussion item. Just to say I've been thinking about that and reviewing that. And I know Steve and Ashish have been looking at that as well. Also last week, I put up a PR for logging an error when there was a misconfigured schedule. I'm sorry, no, misconfigured timeout on hooks. So if there isn't a duration unit, then it would just silently fail. It wouldn't return anything and take the default of 30 seconds. But we had a to-do in the code to say, hey, log this. So we had an issue from a user last week, and I went and added the log. So going forward, if you provide a hook timeout and you don't have units, it will still revert to the 30-second timeout, but now it will log a warning and say, hey, I couldn't parse the timeout you provided. And then let's see, coming up this week, I want to get deeper looks at the KubeBuilder PR that Carlisia has been working on, and also follow up on the restore hooks PR that Mark Campbell has been working on. And then also a request for the other maintainers to look at the tagging scripts PR. So this was a PR I put up last week to automate our release a little bit more, so that it takes hopefully less time to generate a release, and less of the decision making is just in docs. So it's all should mostly be automated, but there's a few things in there that I would especially like to pick Steve's brain, because I haven't done a patch release, and that section of it's not quite done. Then finally, I've been working on internal build stuff, similar to Ashish. So I think that's most of it.
All right. Any questions, comments for Nolan? Okay, moving on to Carlisia.
Yes, so I pushed cleanup and code review, address code reviews for that PR. And I do have 3 questions that is just pertain to code refactoring, nothing related to logic. I think the logic works, and I totally don't expect major changes with new code reviews for that. So I think it's pretty close. And I am working off of this branch to create a new controller for the backup storage location, which is pretty much code that I had before. I just formatted the KubeBuilder way and separated the logic. It was actually very simple to do. And that's done, but I need to add the tests, which I'll be working on today. Hopefully I can push a PR for that tomorrow. And then I'll be ready to tackle the next controller, but I also want to go, I need to go back to this and test this with restic, which I'm sort of hanging on to until I get final reviews in case code needs to be changed. So that's where I am.
Carlisia, I saw your comment on the or your response to my question on your PR. I haven't had a chance to go back and look at it. I will do it today.
Oh yeah, good reminder. So I have 3 questions that is just like a dumb code refactoring that I couldn't decide. And I just wanted to have a double check on that. And in your question, which I didn't know, it might just be no, we don't need to add that.
Yeah, I would. I'll take a look at it sometime
Okay.
today.
Yeah, thanks.
Also, I think you have one of the best commit messages in here that I've seen in a long time. This one. Oh, that's what this code was for, adding back.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
Believe it, I have better than that, but I hold back a lot.
You can be free to express yourself in any way. We don't judge.
All right. Hey, this is being recorded. Okay.
Just adhere to the CNCF code of conduct. Anything after that is fair game. Actually, it's not the CNCF project. Why am I saying CNCF? Adhere to the VMware, open source. What is it called, Jonas?
Is the covenant.
The open source covenant. Yeah, that's the one. That's what I was looking for. Adhere to the open source covenant and be free to express. By the way, I want to say one thing. Last week we had 17 folks on the Velero call. We have 21 today. Amazing. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for your support and contributions to this project.
Yep, love it. Any questions, comments for Carlisia? All right, then we're diving into discussion topics. The first one is from Vishnu.
Yeah, thanks, Arjun. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're being very, very loud. Maybe you can lower your mic a bit.
Sorry, is it fine now? Sorry for that. Is it fine now, Jonas?
A little better, maybe a little lower.
Sure, sorry. Is it better now?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Right, yeah, this PR had some good review comments from the maintenance. Thanks for that. And I'm just trying, I just saw a few more comments just now, sorry. I looked at them before the call. I think I'll go through them. I addressed them. I think mostly some of them related to some typos and few are on opinions. Otherwise, I think it's anything else from my side it's more of the few more review cycles has to go through, if I'm not wrong. And also, I'd like to just bring up any specific points for my tenants to discuss. We can discuss in the call for a faster communication. I mean, yeah, that's the thought I have.
Sure. Is there any specific ones that you would like to discuss?
So I have one for the security consideration, the last point, which talks about every plugin have access because they run in the Velero namespace. The very last point, I think that I don't think we have a solution right now. That's one I have a pending on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's something we would address as part of this. I mean, we've talked in the past about possibly running plugins in separate containers. I don't know about running them in separate pods, but maybe if we started to do something like that, we could think about breaking out RBAC. But yeah, I probably would not try to tackle that as part of this.
Sure, Steve. Going above, we have few of the comments from you, Steve. I think you want to just do a discussion right now, or we can go over the review PR itself, if that is fine.
Yeah, I mean, if folks have opinions, I basically, since we're talking about adding new API types, I do just want to make sure we're thoughtful about that and are happy with the new API types that we come up with, because those are harder to change than internal code going forward. So I added a few more thoughts here. I mean, my high level comment is that I think the direction makes sense. And so it's just a matter of nailing down exactly what the API looks like.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, nothing from my side to bring up in this call, unless we have, some maintenance want to talk about it. Otherwise, I'm good.
I think for me, I haven't read Steve's comments, but I think for the security side, I think other than just putting NA, we could say we're not going to tackle it here. Just to be explicit that it's, I think it's applicable, but it's maybe not in scope.
Right. No, I will update that. Yeah, I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I also haven't had a chance to look at it after we spoke about it last week. I will go over it again.
Sure, Ashish. Thank you. No problem.
Right. Any other questions, comments for Vishnu? Okay, thank you, Vishnu. Moving on to the next one. I will mispronounce this. I apologize. How do you pronounce your name?
Phương.
Phương?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Phương Hoàng. I'm with the Dell EMC Data Protection. I work exclusively on virtual machine and Kubernetes for the last 5 years. So I've been in our group, we're doing backup and restore for Kubernetes application, and we run into situation where we have to backup entity resources in a specific order. For example, you have a cluster, the master and slave, and we have to back up it in a specific order. And I also found some other people also, as you can see on that request, on that post that I had, it's used 1917. Is someone also have that need to be backup persistent volume in specific order? So instead of doing, for each type, so I propose a chain that would we would backup order of any type in a space. So if you specify, it will be that in the backup spec, I will add another mapping between the type and an array of string. And that string will be the order of entity of that type. So for example, if I want to order PVC, backup of PVC in specific order, I would, the mapping would be between the PVC string and an array of string. Each element of the array of the string will be the name of that PVC, so that when we do backup, we will specify, we will serialize these entity in that specific order. If there's nothing specified at all, then we just do as normal order that whatever the rest of the Kubernetes API return. So that is my proposal. I try to do implementation very quickly to see how it is. And what I found out is the chain might be very small. It's only about 100 lines of code or so. So I'm going to start to, I'm going to propose that request chain very soon. I will submit the design.md very soon. We need to discuss internally a little bit to make sure that we have all the language, all the syntax ready, but that is the chain that I propose. That's it for me.
I think this sounds interesting. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I think it sounds reasonable at first glance. I mean, it sounds like this will be an optional new API field. So for folks who don't have a need for this, it's essentially no change for them, and it's really just opt-in behavior for the use cases that are needed. So yeah, it sounds reasonable, and look forward to seeing the design doc.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for submitting this. This is great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wong. Next up, we have Steve and Mark, I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the restore hooks design doc PR that we have open, and Mark, I think I saw you on the call, or at least you were here before.
Yeah, Mark had to drop, but I could relay any information back to him.
Got it. Okay. I kind of just wanted to ping on this and see if Mark or others who are interested are going to be able to respond to some of the open questions and comments and kind of continue to push this design doc through.
Yeah, we could take another pass at that. I think two of the biggest issues right now were whether or not the adoption is going to work for the pods. And then also I saw that Ashish was pushing for init containers or some sort of free restore hook. So I guess kind of wanted feedback from the contributors on which way to go on those main issues.
Yeah, about the init containers, the point I was trying to make is like we are introducing this restore hooks, but most of the times or most scenarios, you would want the data to be restored before your actual application starts. Otherwise, like the application would probably need another restart, at which point the pod may relocate and we might lose the the action performed by the restore hooks. So that was my thinking behind proposing that. And also, because we are adding this new restore hooks, we might also add like a policy or something as to when to run this restore hooks. Instead of adding that, keeping that as an enhancement at a later point, we might want to do that straight in the first attempt itself. So that was what I was thinking. Happy to hear other folks' point of view as well.
I generally agree with Ashish, especially around the fact that if you are going to restore, you need to restore before and run some hooks before the app gets up and running, right? Then you get into race conditions and situations where you have an application that's consisting of multiple services and they're dependent on each other. It could get us into some troubling situations that are hard to troubleshoot. So I generally agree with those recommendations.
Just on the issue around the pod adoption, I started to spend some time on this, but I didn't get too far into it. I got distracted on some other things, but I guess my kind of working assumption is that we're relying on this behavior for restic, and it seems like for the vast majority of users, this works okay. And so I think I'd be sort of inclined to be okay relying on it here as well. And if longer term we see that we need to make a change here, we can. But in the absence of any specific information that says we shouldn't do it, I feel like given that we're already using this behavior, it'd be okay to continue to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk with Mark and we'll try to address any other open comments.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think if you can just go through and kind of resolve or make updates, then we can just close out the remaining things.
Yeah,
thanks.
And Andrew and if you know from Mark, like, do you guys have a timeline for basically driving some of these changes? Let's say that we get everything buttoned up and we have a complete idea of what we want to build, maybe by the end of this week, even if even possible. Like, do you know, when you might be able to allocate resources to get this done?
I'm guessing maybe next month, start on it.
So start in July, basically.
Yeah, probably around then.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew, for jumping in. Does anyone else have any discussion topics that they would like to bring up on today's call?
Hi, Jonas. This is Vishnu again.
Yeah, go ahead.
This, Kiran had few comments in governance PR. I mean, he's not able to attend the meetings due to clash with other meetings he have. I want to bring up one of the point like which you mentioned in the PR about just an intermediate role for a lead kind of thing, like in between contributor and the maintainer. We can have some kind of a reviews for some models kind of thing. We can own up some reviews, not like the much permissions, but the review kind of he should be able to review for a particular area. That's just like that's one of the thought we want to share with the team.
Yeah, I thought we had discussed that last week.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Velero is necessarily big enough for that yet. I think that's it's. Go ahead.
No, yeah, you're right. I think we talked about having an intermediate step between contributor and maintainer, but not specifically having a specialized area outside of the plugins. So if you are you can easily be a maintainer of a plugin, which would be a specific area of Velero. So, but other than that, I think a reviewer / approver, or whatever we end up calling that intermediate role, would be for most of Velero, of course, but everyone has subject matter expertise in certain areas. So I think Carlisia, you said last week that you wouldn't call on everyone, but you would call on the right people.
Yeah, I think as we get to know people's work, we would know what their expertise lies. So if we had a group of people who would not yet be maintainers, but be that reviewer sort of role. Now, one thing that we discussed was we could add this intermediary role, but we first have to identify some people to fulfill that role and not just have that role there with no one listed under it. So I guess what we need to see is, so that role would be specifically for people who are not yet maintainers, but they are reviewing PRs, they are reviewing issues and helping us do a first pass. So I guess we need to see that or identify people who have been doing that. I guess both things.
Yeah, and we had a call for interested parties on the June 2nd discussion items. So if folks are interested, let us know.
Yep, please do.
Okay.
And people can ask us, hey, you know, I sort of know this area. Do you want to point me to some PR for reviews? We'll gladly help you, direct you. We very much want people to participate more.
Sure. Yeah, got it. I got the response. Thanks, Carlisia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vishnu. Any other? Sorry, go ahead.
That's it from my side.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, anyone have anything else they want to bring up on today's call?
I had a quick follow-up about the restore hooks work. I was wondering if we wanted to get that into the 1.5 release, when that would need to be ready.
Yeah, so we go ahead, Jonas.
No, you go ahead, Steve. I just
Oh yeah,
the
I was basically going to point to this and say notionally we're targeting, August. We tend to not be specific date driven, so we sort of chew off an amount of scope that we think will take us about 2 months, and then we essentially go until it's done and ship. But the target is around August.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
I think there was one other item. I see Sureka on the call. So there was this open issue or this issue about not being able to take restic backups in certain environments. I'm not sure what might be going on. This is issue 2506. Pasting it in the chat here for folks. If anybody has suggestions or troubleshooting tips, please feel free to jump in and make those.
Yeah, I'll try and I see that there's some more data that's been pasted in here. So since I'm on community support, I'll try and spend some more time on this this week. Hopefully we can get to a resolution. But yeah, I got to review the data that's in here.
Okay. I will let Sureka add whatever they've found into this issue, or like mention it during the call, whatever they are comfortable with. Once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, please update the issue.
All right. Does anyone have any further last items to add to the meeting today? All right, Steve. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Venkat.
Hi.
So we have one more problem regarding the node ports. Actually, when we take the backup, we have some static node ports in the services. After restore, we are getting the dynamic node ports instead of the static ones. So,
sorry, is this related to issue 2506?
Yes. 2506. Yeah, some kind of, yeah.
Can you update the issue with this? I'm not sure I followed, but maybe others did.
This was
Is
a
that
new
2506, or is that, because that's is that connected to 2506? Because 2506 looks like it's all restic.
Yeah.
Okay, I will raise a separate query, separate ticket for this one.
Okay, so in 2.3, I just pasted 2308 in the chat, which is something about node ports. Let me know if that's similar, and if not, then we can see if there's something that exists in the backlog.
Yeah, sure. I will go through it, and if it is a different one, I will raise a ticket. If it is a similar one, then I will update the issue.
Okay, because yeah, we do have some strange behaviors around node ports. So
yeah, sure.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next up, I think we have the contributor shoutouts.
Yeah, I can jump in on the first one. And so we had a contribution from C. Blecker to support if you're creating a backup based off a schedule. So Velero create backup -- from schedule. Previously, you were required to explicitly name the backup. So this PR enabled basically an automatically generated backup name, which just I think takes the schedule name and appends a timestamp to it, so that the user has one less thing to type when they're creating a backup. So thanks a lot for the PR here. And let's see, I don't actually remember if this got shipped in 1.4 or if this will be a 1.5 item.
No, I threw that in. 2543 is just the backup progress. Yeah, this one. So just thank you, Vishnu, for your patience in discussing this. It's not shipped yet, but appreciate your responsiveness and your patience in working with us here.
Thanks, Nolan. Thanks for mentioning it. It's a good other feedback for me. Thank you.
Awesome. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. As Michael said earlier, we were at a record number for the Velero community meeting today at 21 attendees. So thank you all for joining today and have a fantastic rest of the week. And see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.